I have the honor and privilege of touring the country and talking to children from all different types of backgrounds about the power and the importance of reading. And as much as I love this with my heart and my soul, there are some things that are really troubling. And one of the biggest things is that I discovered that black kids, or many black kids, don't like reading. Now, obviously, as a black author and a father, that is a tremendous concern for me, and forced me to ask the question, why? And there are many reasons why. One of them is accessibility to books. In the capital region, in the Albany-Schenectady area, where there are approximately 1.4 million people, there are 21 bookstores. But in the Bronx, New York, where I am a resident, where is my hometown, where there are also, yeah, you can show some love for the Bronx, that's what's up. In my hometown of the Bronx, with approximately also 1.4 million people, there are 0 bookstores. 0. And what is the big difference between the capital region and the Bronx? Our demographics. The capital region is predominantly white, and the Bronx is predominantly black and brown. Now, obviously, accessibility to books is a tremendous issue, but there are other issues as well. I want you to imagine you and your child walking down the street, and coming towards you is LeBron James. Would you recognize LeBron James? Of course you would, and so would your child. And your child might even be able to give you a little bit of trivia, like which basketball teams he's played for, or how many championships he's won, because LeBron James is one of the more recognizable athletes in the world. If in that same street, Beyonce Knowles started walking towards you, would you recognize Beyonce Knowles? Of course you would. And so would your child, and they would be able to tell you all about her from her favorite songs, and that she's married to one of the greatest hip-hop artists of all time, because she is one of the greatest pop stars of all time. And if Will Smith started walking towards you, the first thing you would probably say is, this is a pretty awesome street. But you would also be familiar with Will Smith's work, and Will Smith's, maybe even his very celebrity-driven family, because he is one of the more recognizable actors in the world. And if Jeffrey Kenny started walking towards you, would you recognize him? Would you know who he was? Would your child recognize him and know who he was? Ironically, Jeffrey Kenny is just as viable and just as important in his genre as the aforementioned celebrities and athletes. For Jeffrey Kenny is the author of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. We all had that little aha moment. But why isn't he as recognizable as the aforementioned celebrities and athletes? What is it about the world of authorship in which they are not promoted in the same vein? And this is remarkably important, because this is how we learn. We learn by who we idolize. We all grew up wanting to idolize a famous celebrity, a famous actor, actress, an artist, an architect, or someone that we found personally or media-drivenly relevant. But in the world of authorship, there's this sense of anonymity that just doesn't quite work in the world of pop culture. And that is a tremendous issue. There are no real celebrities in the world of literature. And I had to use the name of Jeffrey Kenny because there is no black equivalent. There is no multi-million selling children's book author in the world of black literature. But there are celebrities in the world of black literature. But oddly enough, they are not the authors and they are not the illustrators. Unlike any other genre, they're the readers. It's the readers that are actually the famous ones in the world of literature, but not necessarily for the right reasons. There's a young man by the name of Sidney Keys who was 11 years old and started a book club because he had such a hard time finding books with children of little black boys that looked like him. But when he finally came over this hurdle and started finding books, he created a book club called Books and Bros. And this And this book club became so famous that he started getting on local news and eventually got the attention of Steve Harvey and even got on the Oprah Winfrey, made it on Oprah Winfrey's magazine, and even got a CNN Heroes Award for his efforts in finding diverse characters to be able to promote to young black children across the country. His female counterpart is a woman by the name of Marlee Diaz. Marlee Diaz did something very similar, because she couldn't find books featuring young black girls that she could have and be able to emulate and also share with her female black friends. So she started a book foundation called 1,000 Black Girls Reading to be able to find these books and disperse them among black girls across the country. Now, as much as these amazing children should be exalted for their efforts, there's a bigger problem here. Why is that these young people are famous because of the deficit in children's book, of diversity in children's literature? In reality, the persons that should be pushed to the forefront should be the authors and should be the illustrators. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And it may be questioned again, why? What is it about, let me rephrase. Thank you. Why is it that authorship is not held in the same vein? Why aren't, especially in the world of black literature, authors pushed to the forefront and promoted in a way that other celebrities are? And it might have something to do with history. In 1833, it was illegal for white people to be able to educate or teach black people how to read. And if they were caught, white people were given a fine of $250 to $500, which is probably like $1 gazillion today. But the thing that disturbs me out of this code the most is the word free. Free black people weren't even allowed to read. Why? What is it about reading that is so remarkably powerful and so remarkably important that even free blacks weren't given this liberty and this opportunity? Because reading empowers, reading liberates, reading educates, and reading emboldens. And we cannot have free-thinking black people roaming this country. Now, naturally, of course, that is not the case today. People of all colors and nationalities are open and free to read wherever it is and whenever it is that they want. Or can they? This graph here shows the diversity within children's books. 85% of all children's books published today either feature a Caucasian character or an ambiguous character like a truck or an animal, leaving less than 15% to divvy up amongst the other races. That is a problem where the primary tool that we use to educate our children books reflect one specific demographic. And the repercussions of that are even greater. The majority of people, the larger percentage of people that are impoverished in this country are black and brown people. And the literacy connection there is that 3 out of 4 people who are on food stamps cannot read above a 4th grade level. In the world of education, blacks and Latinos read at a much lower level proficiency level than their white counterparts, forcing them to be 2 to 3 years behind academically. And in the world of incarceration, although blacks and minorities make up 36% of the population, they make up almost 60% of the prison population. And the literacy connection there is that 2 out of 3 kids who cannot read proficiently will end up incarcerated or on welfare. So as much as the onus needs to be on the world of literature to push forward the authors and the illustrators as the stars, and the system needs to get themselves in place to be able to promote the importance of reading, there is another demographic that's really, really important to be able to push the narrative for children of color to be able to see themselves reflected in a more contemporary way. And that's black authors. Black authors have to do a better job of promoting literature for children of color in another voice besides those of slavery, besides those of suppression. My son once famously said to me, "Dad, I don't know why I have to read about Frederick Douglass. My friends don't read about Thomas Jefferson." And he was 100% right. He was looking for his equivalent of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Black authors have to do a better job of speaking the language of today's child so that they are able to see themselves reflected in a more contemporary way. Now that is actually happening, especially in the world of cinema. Last year we witnessed something that was really spectacular. A few months ago, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was released into movies and became immediately shot to #1 at the box office. What's unique about this Spider-Man is that he is no longer Peter Parker, white boy from Queens. This Peter Parker is an Afro-Latino named Miles Morales, who is now Spider-Man. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is a black and Latino young man. This allows children of color, of all colors, to be themselves reflected in a way that's positive and think about what it means to be a superhero. It means to be heroic. It means to be noble, to express goodwill, to have courage. All things that are so vital for our young people to be able to see within themselves. And then there was this other little movie that you may have heard of called Black Panther. And Black Panther did something that was utterly spectacular. They completely not only changed the narrative of what it means to be reflected on screen, meaning that we no longer need to simply to see ourselves as 12 years a slave, or the butler, or the help. But now we can see ourselves as generals, and scientists, and as kings. And they also did something that was incredibly brilliant. They literally spoke the language of young black America by integrating hip-hop tremendously within the score. In fact, Kendrick Lamar, who is the #1 rap star on the planet, wrote this award-winning score for Black Panther. And Kendrick Lamar, from Compton, by the way, is so dope that he actually won a Pulitzer for his most recent album, Damn. It is artists like that where we need to showcase our children so they can idolize them, so they can see themselves as the next Pulitzer Prize winners or the next musicians who are writing scores for movies. These things are remarkably essential. In fact, the world of hip-hop has to do a better job. Hip-hop is the driving force of so many things in pop culture. It literally pushes the narrative of what we wear, what we look like, and what we do. Hip-hop is the driving force of pop culture. So I'm saying that that the world of literature I'm saying that hip-hop artists need to do a better job of pushing the narrative of promoting literacy. In a way, what I'm saying is that in addition to reading Dr. Seuss, we need to be reading children's books by Dr. Dre. And in addition to reading books from Mary Pope Osborne, we need to be reading books by Mary J. Blige. And we need our hip-hop artists today. We need the Drakes of today. We need the Cardi B's of today. We need the Kanye West of the day. Okay, maybe not Kanye West. Come back home, brother. Put the MAGA hat down. We need you back, bro. But we need today's prominent hip-hop artists to have a larger voice. And I want to use Cardi B for an example. Just a couple of weeks ago, she expressed her frustration and outrage over the government shutdown. And in doing so, her Instagram video about that went viral. And every news channel in the country, maybe even in the world, promoted this young girl from the Bronx and used her voice as a platform to showcase the inadequacies that were happening across our country. Imagine if Cardi B had that same initiative towards reading. Imagine if she used her platform, which is amazing, with her legions of fans to showcase why reading is so powerfully important, especially since she has a new young daughter, brand new baby. For her to be reading to that baby would showcase to Black America why and how important it is for them to start reading to their children. Not to mention, Cardi B also just signed a multi-million-dollar deal to be the spokesperson for Pepsi, which is pretty great. You go, Cardi, and you get as much money as you possibly can. But dear corporations, authors are worthy of your attention as well. How wonderful would it be, in addition to seeing the Cardi B music tour, to see the Ty Allan Jackson literacy tour? So, and it's not like Black authors don't exist. We are incredibly relevant, from authors like the New York Times bestselling authors like Kwame Alexander or Jacqueline Woodson or this other guy. We are out in the community talking to children on why reading is so important, and we have the voice of Black America. But with the support of corporations, with the support of literacy organizations, do a better job of showcasing its authors, with Black authors doing a more efficient job of promoting books that feature children in contemporary ways, we can change the narrative of what it means and have children of color be able to see themselves more reflected in a more positive way in the world of literature. But in addition to them, it is also up to you to change the narrative. It is up to every single one of us to promote the importance of reading, especially in the world of diversity, to our own children. And you can do that by buying books for your children that feature children of color in positive and contemporary ways. And when you read those stories, start out by not just saying, we're going to read and the name of the book, but also say, this story is by this author and this illustrator. And then after you read the story and you get to the end, in the very last pages, there are an about the author page and an about the illustrator page. Read it. Read it aloud to your child. And maybe go on that author's website. Follow them on social media to assist in speaking the language of today's youth. And maybe you'll see on that author's website that they may be in your city in the near future. And maybe you could take your child with you to go visit and see that author and get your book signed from them. And maybe even get the opportunity to take a selfie. So in doing so, what you would be doing is building a bond and connection so that your child can idolize these authors the same way that they do the hip-hop artists and the basketball players and the actors. And what you would be doing is realizing that authors themselves are rock stars as well. Thank you very much.